Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session. My goodness, it's so amazing to see so many of you. Today's session is exploring the animation landscape, trends and insights. It's great to see you all today, and I hope you're all well. My name is Gemma, and I'm from the Expo North Digital team. Expo North Digital is Highlands and Islands Enterprises' mechanism for specialist digital support for the creative and heritage economies across the Highlands and Islands region, and the project is delivered by Ironworks Venue. This workshop is part of HIE's Northern Innovation Hub, designed to build on and accelerate business innovation. It is funded through the Inverness and Highland City Region deal, a joint initiative supported by £315 million of investment from the UK and Scottish governments, Highland Council, HIE and UHI. I am now going to pass over to Jessica Fox, who is our amazing screen and broadcast specialist from our very own Expo North Digital team. Jess, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Thank you so much, Gemma. I really appreciate that. I'm a filmmaker, a writer, and as Gemma said, I'm the film sector specialist for Expo North Digital. We have Jason Lust here, who is an incredible executive producer. First started his company Circle of Confusion, which helped develop The Matrix, went on to do some small movies that you may have heard of, like the one that had just won the Oscar, Pinocchio, to Peter Rabbit, to then at some point vice president of Jim Henson Studios. We're going to get back into his background and his love of animation in a second. Just want to let you know that this will run about a half an hour. We're going to leave about 10 minutes at the end for questions. I really want to make sure that we answer your questions even as we're chatting. So there's a little bit, there's like a chat box at the bottom. So as things come to you, please leave some things in there, especially if you don't feel like talking aloud. I will be reviewing them and then kind of asking Jason some of your questions. So Jason, can you tell us a little bit in your own words about who you are and what you do?
Sure. As you said, I'm a executive producer, a producer, associate producer, co-producer. Billy Wilder, the famous director, once, when asked by the press, Billy, what does an associate producer actually do? Billy, in his thick German accent, said, "What? You don't know? He associates with the producer, of course." I guess that's a short way of saying I wear many hats. I've had to. I can remember when I took my first job in Hollywood, showing up on that first day of work after doing a master's in film producing, and I had no idea what to do. It was all theoretical up until then, and then it was just like learning by attrition, throwing yourself in the fire. And since then, I've learned how distribution works and financing works and development works, and the A to Z of the Hollywood film business, and also the independent film business as well. And then the international business, because today, if you're not a global citizen, you're eliminating obviously an incredibly important part of the equation. Yeah, I mean, Jessica, animation has been a huge part of my career. You mentioned the Jim Henson Company. The first feature I set up at Warner Brothers before the Jim Henson Company, back to my days at Circle of Confusion, was an animated feature. And sadly, that one got greenlit and then got pulled back from a green light. I've told you that story, Jessica. Yeah. But that was my first real experience with animation. And from there, as you mentioned, there was the Pinocchio movie that won the Academy Award last year, and a lot of others in between, from that first movie to Pinocchio. I love animation. I love the different types of animation. Whether you're talking about old school 2D, stop motion, pure CG. There's obviously many different ways to experience animation, and it's ever changing and ever expanding in different ways. I think today is a really, really interesting time in animation. And I'll get into that later. But that's a long-winded answer. I apologize.
No, that's amazing, Jason. And through your process, especially in the beginning with Circle of Confusion, you talked a little bit about what you did with the story of the Matrix and how important it is to visualize things, which kind of goes nice into animation. Can you talk a little bit about how you found about the power of the image and why it's so
Sure.
important?
Everything that I do, that I talk about as a film idea, as I'm kind of germinating ideas, whether they're based on original ideas or existing IP, whether it's licensed IP or IP that's in the public domain, like Peter Rabbit was. I have to take everything to a kind of visual place.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of born from the Matrix, to a large extent, meaning when the Matrix came out, and or when the Wachowskis wrote the script and took it out to the market had passed on it completely. And this was after they directed a movie called Bound, which was a fantastic kind of $5 million noir movie. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend watching it, to everyone on this Zoom. But they so after that movie, a guy by the name of Andrew Lazar was given the opportunity to produce that movie. He produced it. Then they wrote the Matrix script, as I said, took it out to the marketplace with some big producers, and could not get it financed and set up. And then they were scratching their heads for a little bit, and then they were like, well, let's go back and draw it out as a comic book, as a graphic novel. Let's present not what it is on the written page, but let's present it as a kind of visual experience of how we visually want to interpret this narrative. And that's when the Matrix became the Matrix. That's when
Wow.
the kung fu aesthetic, the comic book aesthetic, met with this kind of philosophical narrative, this biblical philosophical narrative. And all of that was merged together, where the executives, whose job it is to say no, were like, this is really freaking cool.
Yeah.
We're going to put this into development. And from there, the rest is history. And so, as a person who wants to make my job easier, rather than more difficult, it was just common sense to be looking at that experience and saying, how can that experience kind of help me build big ideas, big concepts, and communicate a little bit more easily and readily with all of the executive speak in Hollywood, to try to lure them, kind of onto my train, so to speak.
Yeah, that's amazing, Jason. Thank you. You're hands down the hardest working producer I've ever met. You are constantly working and collaborating with some incredible people and finding amazing stories and helping them to the page. And I was wondering, asking you what the landscape currently is in animation is almost too big a concept. It's like huge. But we have a lot of people here who are wanting to enter the industry, maybe folks who are currently working in the industry that have their own ideas. And I was just curious, like, can you highlight some of the changes that are currently happening that you think people should be kind of aware of?
Yeah, I can. I mean, again, I'm as you know, Jessica, right now I'm producing an animation festival. It's not announced yet, but it's with a kind of top music American legacy music festival
Yeah.
in the Pacific Northwest. And we're building out for 2024 an animation kind of program that will eventually become a bigger program, hopefully in the forthcoming years. And I think that there's short animation. There's as I said, the different genres of animation: stop motion, 2D, 3D, etc. And what's interesting right now is, and then AI is kind of obviously also informing and kind of becoming part of this experience. I'm gonna leave AI to the side for a second.
Okay.
But what the good news is that the audience is saying to the marketplace,
Mhm.
we don't want the same old experiences. We are a quote unquote meta modern audience, and we want meta modern experiences.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know what meta modern is, it's kind of an extension of postmodernism, and it takes it to kind of a full circle. I won't get into the definitions of metamodernism, but leave it to say that a movie like Into the Spider-Verse is a meta-modernistic film, animated film. And how that differs with something like Wish, which
Yeah.
was Disney's last big push in as an animated movie. It's interesting to look at that because I had been predicting that it wasn't going to do well, and it didn't do well. And the reason it didn't do well, from my opinion, but others as well, is it's the old school guard. It's Disney doing the same old thing again and again. The print, kind of re-skinning the princess story in a new way, and audiences feel like they've just seen that. I'm not gonna sit here and say that could never work again, but you look at movies like Into the Spider-Verse, Intergalactic, um, Puss in Boots, Last Wish, TNMT, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. These are movies that are all pushing the envelope aesthetically, narratively, in new postmodern, meta-modern ways.
Yeah.
And it's working. It's working because the filmmakers care and they want to do that. And if the studio executives are not pushing them to be part of the old guard formula, and like Wish, right? I think it's all kind of coming full circle. There's another parenthetical area which I'll mention, which is adult animation. There was a movie called Sausage Party, that some of you might have seen, and it was a really fun kind of animated adult movie. And this is an anomaly. It's almost like saying Harry Potter. Like I've been doing I've been looking for my Harry Potter for 20 years. I know I will never find probably my Harry Potter, but I'll keep on searching. And what I mean by that is that lightning only strikes in that particular way once. In the case of Sausage Party, it was a movie that was really, really hard to get through the system, to get financed, because in adult animation, you leave all of the traditional audience behind, the younger demographics. And if you're talking about an R-rated experience, which it was, it's just hard to market that to an audience that's not used to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the movie worked and it made money. And what was interesting is, generally speaking, when you have an experience like that and it makes money, you expect to see more experiences like that. I can't remember exactly what year it was that movie came out, but it was probably about 6 or 8 years ago. And there was nothing really, there's been nothing like it since, right?
Yeah.
Now, however, you have certain divisions at certain studios opening up adult animation divisions.
Okay.
Mike Moon is an executive from Netflix. He just partnered with the guy who did Despicable Me, Chris Meledandri, to open up an adult animation division at Universal. They're focusing on, for instance, the monster universe of Universal's content. And if you can imagine what they're going to do, they're probably going to do some edgier, monster-driven animated movies for a young adult and an adult audience, not for kids. So that's a really new development, and it's happening more often than not, more regularly. And part of my reasoning, at least, is that in the last, let's say, 15 years, there's so many more people who have grown up with animation, And
Yeah.
so it's an evolution for that particular audience.
Jason, that's so interesting. So would you consider animation an easier industry to get your ideas funded in? Is it more competitive than live action? Is it a growth industry? Is this a golden age? Where are we in the kind of the stream of
I
things?
think I think it's the most competitive time I've ever seen in the business.
Okay.
That's not to say you can't get these things up and off the ground, but it's harder to do. Obviously, there's what I'm calling the Great Constriction, which is when obviously the Renaissance, the streaming Renaissance is over. Now the bubble has burst. The strike, did what it did in terms of making it more difficult. Less slots are available,
Okay.
less money is available. So it's just a trickier time. Will AI help change that? The
Hmm.
jury's still out. I think the streaming wars, at least the first round of that, is over. There's a few individual outlets left
Yeah.
standing: Netflix, Amazon, Apple, HBO Max, Peacock.
Yeah.
And I think that some are more content driven than others. Some are more willing to spend on others. Some do not do really animation. I mean,
Okay.
there's Netflix, just as it was going through that process, they were spending billions of dollars on animation, and they've really pulled back from that. Um,
Okay.
what I would say is there's it's all I mean, again, it's all playing out right now in an interesting way, in that as these streamers who have been primarily the donors of animation,
Yeah.
other than let's call it the new donors, right? Meaning you have the old guard of Disney, Warner Brothers Animation, Sony Animation. All of those places are still there. They're the pandemic impacted them,
Mm.
the strike impacted them, but they're all still making content in
Mm.
animation. Um, and then during the streaming renaissance, certain players like Netflix were spending a ton of money in animation and having, like Pinocchio, great success with animation. However, because of the constriction, they've all now stopped spending as much money. So
Oh.
the answer to your question is, it's complicated, but I think it's if you my job is to find out what all of these outlets are looking for
Yeah.
specifically, and to, instead of approach it in the wake, to kind of be future, to be forward thinking about it, and
Mhm.
go and be thinking about how I can look at things like price point and style and concept, and merge all these things together to go, this is a Netflix movie versus this is a
Got
Warner
it.
Brothers or Sony theatrical movie, and be as specific today as I possibly can.
Oh, Jason, that's so helpful. Thank you. And in terms of doing that, I know you really rely, I know some people here are going to be wondering, well, how do I get my ideas out there to either someone like you, or I know you believe really strongly in the pitch package and
Yeah.
visualizing your idea. Do you feel like sharing a little bit of the pitch package here?
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Okay.
If you don't mind, can we pull up the Munchkins of Oz, and I'll tell a
Yes,
little bit of a story on this one.
absolutely. So here we go. I hope everyone can see this. Can you see that?
Yes, Jess, we can see your screen.
Great. Great. Jason, can you see?
I can't see, but that's okay. There we are. Now I can
Yeah.
see.
Great.
Um, so just to tell the origin story of this, during the pandemic, I had always wanted to do something in the world of Oz. There's a movie that's being made right now based on a book that was also a very successful play called Wicked, which postmodernized um, excuse me, the tale of the world of Oz, and told it from the perspective of the Wicked Witch of the West, and made her a sympathetic character. That was, a massive success. But what was interesting, because Wizard of Oz was a very inspirational movie for me growing up, and I always really kind of loved it and admired it. When I saw that, I was amazed at how it held up to even a movie like a great classic movie like The Wizard of Oz. So
Yeah.
when the pandemic hit, I was like, what can I do in the world of Oz that would feel different to Wicked and different than the original Oz story? And there's so many books that Baum had created, so we kind of did some research and honed in on the Munchkins. And with a Scottish animation company by the name of Access, we developed what is this deck. And this goes back to what I was just saying earlier about the notion of kind of using the model of the Matrix to sell a concept to Hollywood. So we honed in on the concept. We put we found the right writer to make our partner, and we found this, or we put Access on the project, and they were the right animation company. And then we started our search for the right character designers. We went through a couple of different iterations and honed in on this one Spanish character designer after looking at a couple of others that didn't work out. And it all has to do with tone, right? And we really wanted to find the right character designer that could get to the tone that we were trying to communicate. Bottom line is we put together this deck. We took it out during the pandemic. We took it to 3 different potential partners, one of which was J.J. Abrams and Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers actually owned the rights to The Wizard of Oz. We could not use the Ruby Slippers for a variety of legal reasons, but once we partnered with them, we could. So that was an exciting addition. And so I'm just going to quickly flip through the deck and just to show you kind of the level of detail and love that goes into kind of not just the deck itself, but the concept, right? And kind of marrying the concept with the deck, with the team. And that's, I think, is really the start of the conversation of, in my mind at least, what it takes to sell to Hollywood, to the animation buyers. This was the series, so either a series or a feature film.
That's great,
Yeah.
Jason,
So
thank you. I think we have only a couple minutes before we should ask questions, so I'm following you in terms of the speed at which you want to flip through.
just flip through the deck slowly, Jessica. I mean, fairly, like, page by page, just a few seconds on each page, and I don't really need to explain much. It's just really about seeing the extent of the deck.
Okay. It looks so
I'm
beautiful.
sorry. I'll read this one. This was just the concept. Sorry, you go back one. Can you go back one more, Jessica? Sorry. It's not letting you. There you go. Yep. Nope. One more.
Is this what you mean?
It's the first page. The first page.
Yeah.
There we go. A reluctant. Oh, nope. Changed it again. Okay, there we go. What if everything you knew about Oz and the Munchkins was wrong? We go to the next page. Nope. Next one down. Yep. A reluctant woodsman, a wannabe warrior, and a sheltered brat from Munchkinland lead a group of outsiders on a treacherous journey to rescue their kidnapped kinsfolk from a deranged wicked witch who has enchanted her victims to help seize her ultimate power over Oz. That's great. Thank you, Jessica. And that should allow us just to flip through the images and show them the rest.
I love that one. That image is so beautiful.
That's the synopsis page. Next one. And it's worth noting that we wanted to get the deck as close as we could to what the show would look like, you know, as a finished product. Obviously, what you're seeing is not the finished product. It's an impressionistic version of the finished product. But I think that you know, again, it was trying to present the most kind of undeniable version of what we were imagining this concept to be.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the main characters.
It's amazing the amount of work that goes into this. It's extraordinary, actually. Do you
Yeah,
feel
I
like
mean,
this is something that everyone can do for their own ideas?
I mean, I think there's look. This is the beauty of AI, right? I'm not a proponent of AI, but I will say you can't with AI yet. You can't be as specific as we're being in this particular deck, but you can get at a really articulated deck. And so the answer to your question is yes. And
Mm-hmm.
I just did not too long ago a deck in AI that blew people away.
Wow.
And it was the first one that I had done. Again, it's not. I'm not a proponent because I'm very precise in terms
Mm-hmm.
of tone and style and character design, and the deck you're looking at is not anything that I could generate with AI as of right now, but eventually it will be.
Jason, thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's really helpful and special to see a project in that phase of development. I'm very generous of you. I'm conscious that we have about 10 minutes for questions. Does anybody have a question they like? You can raise your kind of fake hand, and I can either call on you or you can write it in the chat box. And while you're thinking of those questions, because it's very rare to have Jason here chatting, Jason, I see your finger up.
No, I was just going to say if we could do it verbally, that would even be better because
Okay.
I'm working off of a small cell phone screen and I'll have a hard time probably reading it.
Okay.
So if we could just speak through the questions, I'd love also to hear from some of the people here in terms of like why animation. Are they just showing up because they want to hear? Are they working in animation?
Mhm.
Any particular stories or background would be lovely to hear.
Yeah,
So that would be
agreed.
great.
People just chime in. I do have one question because I noticed some folks are also working in the game space. Jason,
Great.
do you feel that these stories that maybe begin in animation have homes elsewhere? So as you're developing something like the Munchkins, are you having conversations like, yes, we can co-develop this as a game, or how does that work in terms of world building?
Yeah, I mean, today you have to think along the lines, again, in terms of franchises and what Hollywood puts out, you
Mhm.
have to think along the lines of building universes as opposed to one-off ideas, right? And when you're talking about universes like Stranger Things, for example, that was designed as a show you know, as it was actually developed through the family department at Netflix, and to their surprise, it became the mega hit that it became. They never expected that, and sometimes lightning strikes in that way. Um, but as you see, there's now a stage play and it's doing very well.
Yes.
And you know, as the success began in that on that particular property, people started to look at different ways of integrating storylines and narrative of extensions of the kind of the universe. And so, you know, there's a movie that I recently sold to Sony, and we're doing it with a kind of Latino movie star. It's a big branded property. We did it with one of the major comic book publishers. We're doing it as a comic book. We're doing it as a movie. We're looking at it as a video game, to answer your question. So
Yeah.
we're looking at it as a complete experience. Whether, you know, it's not an easy thing to do, right? Like Circle of Confusion was involved in a thing called the Animatrix, which was anime, the you know, anime Matrix episodes, which were beautiful for anyone who's ever seen them. And that was an extension of the Matrix world. Again, like the Wachowskis after the Matrix wielded so much power in Hollywood that they could do something like that pretty easily and get the funding for it. But if you're starting off from scratch and trying to build, you know, many lines of you know, kind of strategy, meaning a video game, a movie, and a stage play, that's going to be challenging for original IP. So I just warn, you know, it's best to kind of focus on one thing, get it right, but also be able to talk about the universe.
Thank you so much, Jason. We have a lot of questions coming in now. So first we're going to start with Tim, and then we're going to go to the chat box. Tim.
Thank you, Jessica. And Jason, excellent presentation, fantastic. I'm very pleased to see that you had something positive to say about AI there, particularly. That pleased me enormously. But on my serious question is, I tend, I suppose, to think of animation as being very much in the kind of fantasy area, and you spoke about some of the specifics of the demographic that typically goes with animation. What do you think of animation playing into other genres like documentary and these types of areas? Do you think it has a role there? And do you think any of the more recent developments in what's possible within animation has enhanced its capacity to reach into different genres?
No, that's an excellent question. Thank you, Tim. I think yes is the short answer. Vis-a-vis documentary, I think that there's a documentary that I just saw that if you want to see an excellent case of what you're presenting, the Frida Kahlo documentary was extraordinarily used. They used animation and voiceover to give a particular voice to someone who is no longer alive, which is Frida Kahlo. I think there's the Waltz in Bashir. There's great examples of documentaries that smartly use animation and do it well. In fact, I'm working on a musical, a story about the band Popol Vuh, and we're going to be using animation in that. Popol Vuh was an early German synth kind of band that did all of the music for Werner Herzog, the documentarian, and the filmmaker. In any event, I think yes, animation. That's the exciting stuff. Is that, you know, and the place where we're still in the kind of Wild West and this new frontier of how AI is going to make the process more efficient and open up, you know, more dynamic ways of expression in animation. But again, there, you know, if you talk to the animation community, who are, you know, it really just depends who you're talking to, because they're old school, they're the old school ways of the hand drawn 2D, traditional CG, kind of approaches, and most people are kind of reluctant as of yet to kind of forfeit the kind of complete ownership of their product, and allow the machine to take over. But it's something that I think is going to be based on individual experience.
Thanks, Jason. That's great. So Bob would like to know how much rewriting goes on after the animation process has begun, like punch-ups, new scenes, etc.
Okay, so how much rewrite? I mean, that's the script is always a work in progress, and voice is always kind of it can be an early stage aspect of it. Not obviously, you need the script first before you voice anything, but there have been cases where you voice something, and then like someone like Robin Williams on Aladdin will go off the page, and so that will, and the directors will love that, so they'll want to introduce that into the final product. So I think it's a it's a process that really guides itself, and each director will do it a little bit differently. There's a thing called an animatic, which is where you kind of map out the entire movie early on, just to present it to the executives and to present it even to yourself, and have a blueprint of what the movie will kind of feel like rhythmically. That's where you could use sketches and voiceover and all these kind of different techniques to bring it to life. And I've seen that process work its way into the very end of the film.
That's amazing. That's really great, Jason. Thank you. And so we only have a couple more and we're going to let Jason go. But Barry says Animatrix is amazing. It was a huge influence on myself and my fellow animation degree students when it was launched. And I see that Barry's raised his hand. Barry, would you like to?
Great. Yeah, I'll stick my camera on as well. I mean, this is when you talk about things, obviously going on like kind of like the animatics and things, and obviously going into like storyboards. That was hugely influential, obviously, when we were doing stuff back in the day. And my cat's just arrived. There we are. So as per normal. I guess kind of the question I'm kind of sort of looking at is, when I sort of first started out, it was Softimage, was kind of the 3D software that we used at university. And then obviously Autodesk, bought it, and we saw it kind of fade away. Sorry, she's back again. And then we kind of sort of saw Maya really sort of kind of taking the kind of the biggest sort of market share. Now we've sort of seen things like Blender starting to be used in the new Spider-Man, across the multiverse film. Do you kind of sort of see it now where it's sort of open source packages like Blender? Do you think we're going to start to see them more kind of sort of start to bleed in? Because obviously, it's been back in the day when we had things like obviously Maya, it was all the old animators who had learned to use it. Whereas Blender now being so accessible, do you think we're maybe going to sort of see that kind of sort of become more standard?
I think that goes with what I was saying about like where things are heading from a narrative conceptual idea. Because if you're telling, the traditional old school story in a traditional way, then you don't need all the open source stuff and new techniques, right? For instance, when Animal Logic, when I was at Animal Logic, we developed a software called Brick for the Lego Movie, right? And you can't really make that movie without that software. You needed that, and that was the big question from executives at Warner Brothers at the time, was like, what's this? No one wanted to pay attention to that movie until a test was done illustrating what the movie would look and feel like, and that needed the software, the Brick software that I'm referring to actually bring it to fruition. When the executives saw the movie, saw the short, right, as a proof of concept, it literally went from 0 to 100 in terms of a green light. It was an amazing thing to experience, because I had never seen anything go through the system quite in that way. So this very speaks to look and feel. And when you're talking about look and feel, you know that, you know, when you're open sourcing things and open to those new fresh ideas and not relying on the age-old networking of one particular model, that's where some of these, you know, revolutionary kind of results will stem from. And I think that is we're gonna see that more and more. I really, especially with AI.
Yeah, yeah. Sora obviously has just now become part of Adobe Premiere as well. Obviously that's the partnership that Adobe's just done, obviously, with OpenAI. So I think that's going to be groundbreaking as well.
There's a company that I just visited down in New Orleans not too long ago, and they're now, Matt Reeves, who directed, you know, the last Batman, just put them on the next animated Robin movie, Batman and Robin movie, sorry. And their approach, so I'm working with a particular director, I won't say who he is. I'm producing a movie for him, and he's an animation guru. He's brilliant, and he saw their work, and he's like, oh my God, I've never seen character performance done in this particular way. And the brass at Warner Brothers, Matt Reeves, everyone had the same reaction. And this was from this small little company that had designed their, you know, software and their tech, and they, you know, kind of have, you know, kind of obviously have trademarked and copyrighted all that tech now. But you know, I think that yes, you're always going to have the Mayas, but I think the audiences are speaking, and they want new experiences like Spider-Man and Into the Spider-Verse, and like, you know, Last Wish and TNMT, and all of these were rendered in new and dynamic ways, and so it's exciting.
Thanks, Jason. We have one more, and I'm conscious we're going to have to let you go. This is a phenomenal session. I want to thank you so much. We have one question from Michelle.
Hi there. Sorry, I will make this quite quick.
Sure. Hi, Michelle.
Hi there. I just wanted to say I love what you were saying about kind of the use of animation, not as a genre in itself, but kind of like, you know, as a medium for filmmaking, like in the documentary and everything like that. And you spoke a lot about AI and kind of the audience wanting something innovative and progressive. But I actually work in stop motion animation, and I just wanted to know what your kind of views of that was, and if there's still a place for that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's always like it, you know this if you work in it. It's the Achilles heel of animation, right? It's I mean that in that it's the most beautiful. From my subjective experience, you know, I love it the most. Meaning of all the genres within animation, stop motion is probably my favorite for a lot of different reasons that I won't bore everyone with. But for whatever reason, the general audience doesn't, you know, respond as well to it as they do the shiny digital, you know, stuff like Despicable Me, right? And therefore you have someone like Henry Selick, who sets up a stop motion deal at Disney, and they start to, like, they come and they announce that they're doing a big stop motion push at Disney, and then 1 year later, you know, 18 months later, they shutter that program out of fear, essentially, because, you know, that happened to coincide with their experience with Tim Burton on Frankenweenie, and they just weren't well received at the marketplace. You have Aardman, you know, you have Leica, you have Shadow Machine, you have McKinnon and Saunders in Manchester. You have, you know, some great stop motion houses. You have Wes Anderson and his movies. So I don't think they're going away, but it's kind of its own separate thing and needs to be treated that way. And what I was saying earlier is, if you know that you want to do something, Pinocchio was done for around $35 million. And I think if you look at that price point next to some of the other bigger $150 million animated experiences, I think Pinocchio stands up to those. It's a different beast. If it was released theatrically, it probably wouldn't have done $1 billion. But as a streaming movie winning the Academy Award, it really, hit a perfect spot. So we got very lucky, because it could have just as easily been released by Sony Imageworks theatrically and might not have done what it did. So you just never know. But yeah, stop motion, I think, is here to stay, and hopefully it is. I love it. What do you?
That's
what I have a question for you. What do you do in stop motion?
I'm a puppet maker.
Oh, no way! Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, are you based in Inverness, or
I'm
where are
kind
you
of
based?
at the moment going wherever the work is. So I've been
Okay.
working for Aardman a little bit, and then I come back to Scotland and do some work up here as well. So
Oh, that's so cool. Do you know my friend Paul Cooley? He produced Shaun the Sheep.
Paul,
Paul Cooley.
I
Cooley.
don't.
Okay,
Sorry.
he spent about 10 years at Aardman,
Yeah.
and produced the Shaun the Sheep movies. But I'm working with him on a few things. He and I went to school together. We're
Oh, cool.
classmates. So, yeah.
Jason, thank you so much. You're literally, we've been so
course.
happy you've been in the driver's seat, literally and figuratively. And this has been an awesome session. Thank you so much.
Guys, I'm sorry. I'm a little blurry-eyed or delirious for, I was telling Jessica before this call that I had no sleep on the plane. So if I wasn't making sense, I apologize, but hopefully some of it made some sense.
No, it was all made sense and it was awesome. Jason, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to pass it over to Gemma now.
Thank you, Jessica.
Hi,
and thank you so much, Jason. Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And I hope you enjoyed today's session with Jason and Jess, and you found it a valuable use of your time. Please do visit our website, www.exponorth.co.uk, where you can look at our events section and sign up to our newsletter to be kept up to date with future events and news. Also on the website, we have our video archive with lots of extremely interesting content, as well as our inquiry form for any specialist sector support. Also, make sure to connect with us on Facebook, X also known as Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn. And once again, thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we will get to see you all again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.